Okay, now look at the lecture outcome. What you're supposed to know after we have attended these lectures. We have the saliva compositions. We will look into the organic components, its content of salivary protein, small organic molecule. Beside that, we also will look into the inorganic components such as electrolyte. At the beginning, the saliva is isotonic that will find in the acina of the salivary glands before it produced or secreted into the oral cavity. So during the formations of the saliva, the isotonic saliva will transfer and modify in the duct system. So the end products of the saliva when it's secreted to our oral cavity is in the hypotonic conditions. So basically, saliva is contribute to compositions of saliva, and the various rate of the secretions is depend on the pattern of sleeping. Yeah, usually when you sleep, you have a raw saliva for it. So when there is assimilations, let's say we have the we are eating or we are smelling some food, so the saliva flow will be high salivary flow rate with 1 ml per minute. And the saliva secretions is controlled by the salivary centers. And as I said just now, the flow of the saliva is controlled by the stimuli. Now look at saliva compositions. In the organic constituents, the main organic constituent is the saliva protein, which make up by 0.15 to 0.25 gram per 100 ml. And what are the main protein that find in the saliva protein is glycoprotein. And glycoprotein function is for viscosity and lubricating our oral cavity. And those proteins actually are secreted by the acina cell. We can secrete more than 40% of different protein into the saliva and the blood. Okay, now look at the organic constituents where we can find in the whole saliva. For the soluble glycoprotein in saliva, it included the antibody of hemoglobin A, hemoglobin M, hemoglobin G. And in the organic constituents, we have also saliva enzyme. There is alpha amylase with a high amount, lysozymes, carbonate anhydrase, oxidase, and phosphatase. So what are those functions of the organic constituents? For the saliva amylase is type of the enzyme. It begins the starch digestion into the mouth. And for the linguolipase, it also type of the enzyme and is activated by stomach acid and digest fat after the food is swallowed. For the mucus, it will be bind and lubricate the food mass and is aimed in the swallowing for the food digestion. For the lysozyme, it kills the bacteria and also pathogens if they find in the oral cavity. Whereas for the immunoglobulin A, it is type of the antibody that inhibit the bacterial growth. So basically, all those functions of the organic constituents are mainly to maintain our oral health. Besides that, just now what I have mentioned for the organic constituents, saliva also contains a small amount of lipid, amino acid of alanine, glycine, glutamine. Also, saliva also contains of urea, vitamin, free carbohydrates, and those free carbohydrates will be present in a low amount in the uncontaminated saliva. It means that there is without presence of the foods. So the free carbohydrate actually is in a high concentrations after the food and the sugar. Another saliva composition is uric acid and free glucose that we can find in our saliva. Okay, just now what you have mentioned is about organic components. Now look at in the inorganic component of the whole saliva. Basically, we can find electrolyte, gases, water, and other constituents that devise from the oral cavity. Now look at the electrolyte. The electrolyte concentrations quite similar in the plasma, where you can find in the saliva is a calcium bicarbonate chloride, potassium, magnesium, sodium, fluoride, bicarbonate, phosphate, and biphosphate. Whereas for the gases, it's a CO2, nitrogens, and oxidants. Don't forget, we also have the water as a main component in the saliva. So, what else that we can get from the saliva is the constituents that derive from our oral cavity itself, where there is the desquamated epithelial cells. Beside that, we also have the white blood cells, leukocytes from clavicular fluids and bacteria. Okay, now look at this table that we obtained from B.P. Ferguson's in the oral bioscience. Now look at, we are comparing the unstimulated saliva and stimulated saliva for the content of the electrolyte. Unstimulated saliva is a resting saliva, and the stimulated saliva is the saliva have been secreted under the stimuli. Okay, so what is the electrolyte that increase between those two parameters for the unstimulated and stimulated saliva is sodium. Sodium will be increased from the unstimulated saliva to stimulated saliva. What else will be increased is bicarbonate, phosphate, and fluoride. So when you have time, you can look at this table and compare what is the difference between the concentrations of electrolyte for this stimulated saliva and unstimulated saliva. Okay, now we can summarize our topic for today about saliva compositions. Saliva compositions is contained of the saliva volume, which has 600 to 1000 ml per day. For the electrolyte compositions, we have sodium, potassium, chloride, bicarbonate, calcium, phosphate, and fluoride. For the secretory protein, we have amylase, purine proteins, mucin, cystatin, cystatin, peroxidase, lysozyme, lactoferrins. For the hemoglobin, we have secretory IgA, IgG, IgM. Where else? There is another organic molecule, the glucose, amino acid, urea, lipid. They come in as a small organic component. We have also another many others component like EPG, epithelial growth factor, insulin, cyclic adenophosphate binding protein, and albumin. So bear in mind, there is a lot of saliva components in our oral cavity to help us to maintain the oral health. Let us summarize today's lecture topic. Bear in mind, the pH of the saliva is slightly acidic, where it's giving a pH of 6 to 7, and the volume of the saliva is 500 to 1500 ml of saliva per day in the normal conditions. So 90% of secretions of the saliva actually are from the major saliva glands. This is parotid, submandibular, and sublingual glands. There are also 10% of secretions are from minor salivary glands, and the whole mouth saliva contains almost of 90% of water and 1% of inorganic and organic components. Whereas for the inorganic components, it consists of electrolyte, there's potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, phosphate, and chloride. For the organic component, it can divide into two. One is protein and another one is non-protein components. For the diagnostic tools for oral and systemic disease, the saliva is very important. To use as a saliva biomarker to detect some oral and systemic disease. Well, for the saliva, it also can act as a lubricant inhibitor for demyelinations, promote the demyelinations, help in digestions, also provide bacterial and antiviral effect. Last but not least, I would like to thank you for your attention during my class. Hope you enjoy the class. See you later, guys.